All right, boys and girls and boys. Let's set the mood for our next read, shall we? Bam. All right. And what is it we'll be reading tonight? Oh, I don't know. How about Indiana Jones and the Circle of Death? Scat-ska-da-da, scat-ska-da, scat-ska-da-da, scat-ska-scat-scat-scat, by William McCay. Scat-ska-scat-scat, scat-ska-scat, 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 scat-ska-scat. Chapter 1. We're free, young Indiana Jones leaned into the dorm room and grinned at his pal, Herman Mueller. Let's get out of here before they cancel the holidays. And he stood in the drab, drafty, whitewashed hallway of a British boarding school called Charrington Academy. He and Herman had been there from the start of fall term, but not by choice. Both the boys were in England because of their fathers' work. Charrington was hardly like the cozy English school Indy had read about. Instead of friendly teachers, there were nasty masters in black gowns. On his first morning, a rat-faced history teacher had glared at Indy. In icy voice, the man had told him to take off the hat he'd brought from Utah. It wasn't proper headgear. Charrington had uniforms. The school hat looked like a midget baseball cap. Today, Indy was wearing a battered old hat anyway. Forget about the rules. He was escaping for Christmas vacation. Indy glanced back to see a small mountain of bags totter out of the room. Behind it, he caught a glimpse of the dopey school cap perched on Herman's dark head. "Why are you bringing all that stuff?" Indy asked. A frown darkened Herman's unusually cheerfully round face. "I'm not leaving anything unguarded for the guys here to get at." The guys at Charlington were like the friendly students. Weren't like the friendly students that Indy had read about either. The Charrington scholars had complained that there was no room for Yankee boys on the second floor with them. Indy and Herman wound up on the unused third floor, and the English kids kept short-sheeting their beds, hiding their school books and pulling other dumb stuff. Indy couldn't care less about their stupid tricks. He'd fought grave robbers in Egypt and thieves in America. Once he'd fallen into a boxcar full of snakes, and after that, a short-sheeted bed wasn't much. It wasn't so easy for Herman. He tried hard to be cool like Indy. Brave, cool, at home anywhere, but he just wasn't. And the British kids knew it. They had gone out of their way to make his life miserable. And he stepped aside as the mountain of luggage wobbled past him. He glanced at the one suitcase he was carrying. Maybe he should help. "That's all you're taking?" Herman called back from the head of the stairs. Then he suddenly pitched forward, and he dumped his bag and dashed along the hall. He reached out desperately to grab Herman before he plunged down the stairwell. Indy was lucky. His strained fingers caught hold of Herman's coat. With one hand on the coat and one on the stair rail, Indy managed to slow his friend's fall. Herman landed halfway down an old, soft carpet bag. Groping around for his glasses, he looked up at Indy. "I tripped," he started to say. "Somebody tripped you," Indy corrected. "They tied a tripcord across the top of the stairs, right at ankle level." Herman's face went dead white. "They're really out to get us," he choked. "This time it's gone beyond dumb schoolboy pranks." There was a gleam in Indy's eyes. "We've got to." "Oh, you don't have to do anything," Herman said a little bitterly. "Jones is an okay English name. Maybe a little plain, but all right with them. If you had a fancy hyphen in front of it, you'd fit right in. Henry Wadsworth Jones. That would be just..." Henry was Indy's real name. He hated being called by it. "Herman," Indy interrupted. "It's not just names. It's two," Herman went on. "Herman Mueller's a German name, and the English are afraid of Germans. It's not like it used to be. It's 1913. Germany's got a fleet of almost as strong as the precious British Navy. Somebody's gonna teach the British a lesson. Herman, do you have to talk like that? That's one reason why the British kids here give you such a hard time. Indy gave his friend a look. You know, you're usually an easygoing guy, but lately, you almost seem to be looking for trouble. What's the matter? It's Dad, Herman finally admitted. His last letters, well, there's trouble at Stonehenge. At his archaeological dig? Indy hadn't asked much about Mr. Mueller's expedition out in the country. He was dying to hear about it. But he was afraid Herman would see how envious he was. Indy's dad was just in England to teach at Cambridge University. Mr. M was there to solve one of the most fascinating mysteries of the past. But then, that's what he did. Herman Mueller Sr. traveled the world exploring for ancient treasures and knowledge. He wasn't trained, but he was wealthy. He could pay for lots of diggers, and sometimes he got lucky. Many museums displayed his finds Mr. Mueller had turned up on the digs. From the look on Herman's face, this dig hadn't had much luck. Indy knew that Stonehenge was a mystery to scientists and historians. The awesome circle of stones was so old no one knew how long ago it had been built, or who built it, or why. Mr. Mueller was digging on the plains just outside Stonehenge. He figured there must have been a camp nearby where the builders lived. If he could find it, he'd have all the clues he needed to solve the riddle of Stonehenge. Herman went on, You know how Dad needs all those diggers? Sure, Indy interrupted, his eyes sparkling with excitement. I can't wait to get out there with them. Just think, we'll be digging for treasures. We'll be making discoveries. Indy grinned when he saw the look Herman was giving him. Pick and shovel work was not Herman's idea of a good time. Herman shook his head. Nothing's being discovered at the dig, Indy. Every letter I've gotten from Dad lately tells about a new problem. First, the digging tools aren't arriving at the site, and when they do get there, they break mysteriously, and Dad has to get more. Then the diggers begin quitting or refusing to work. Dad says it's just superstition. Superstition? Indy echoed. Well, Stonehenge is supposed to be a pretty weird place, Herman said. I've seen pictures, Indy frowned. Those big rocks look mysterious, but they're nothing to be scared of. Herman only shrugged. Well, something's scaring the workmen. They talk about strange figures coming towards them through the morning mists, but the figures disappear before they can see them clearly. A couple of men said the flames suddenly rose up in front of their houses. Then they just vanished. Come on, Indy scoffed. Then his eyes lit up with excitement. But why would the workmen make up stories like that? Or something doesn't want your dad to unveil the mysteries of Stonehenge. And that's a mystery right there. Well, it's driving my dad nuts. And I guess I'm getting worried. He's never sounded like this before. Herman's hands were clenched in tight fists, so frustrated. It sounds like my kind of vacation, Indy said. Maybe we can help. With the mystery, I hope, Herman shuddered. Not with the digging. Indy helped Herman gather up his bags, then went back upstairs. He removed the stretched string and stared. The twine was ordinary, but it had a label on it, addressed to Reggie Pengrave. Indy sighed. He should have guessed. Pengrave was the school bully, and Herman was one of his favorite targets. Steaming, Indy snatched up his case and stomped downstairs. He and Herman found a group of their schoolmates by the first-floor landing. The British boys were snickering and laughing. Bally odd, a loud voice was saying. I expected the fat one to bounce all the way down. Indy's angry eyes scanned the crowd until he found the owner's voice. Pengrave, I put up with your other stupid stunts, but this one could have hurt somebody. Reggie Pengrave, captain of the Charrington rugby team, shouldered his way through the group of boys, and he had shoulders to do it. Shouldn't worry about it, old chap, he drawled. There are no somebodies up on the 3rd floor, only nobodies. Indy stared at the tall, husky boy with the dirty blonde hair and a beaky nose. Reggie wore a blue cap with a Charrington seal tipped back on his head. Well, somebody set up a dangerous so-called prank. A pretty dumb somebody. He used a string with his name on it. Indy threw the string and tag in Reggie's face. You're very insulting, Yankee. Pengrave tried to keep his voice calm, but his red face showed how angry he was getting. Good, Indy told him. I was trying to be. That does it. Reggie squared off against Indy. The two boys brought up their fists and began circling. The other kids formed a human ring. Thrash him, Reggie, a boy yelled. Reggie took a swing and missed. Indy dodged. Then he popped his right hand hard against Reggie's cheek. The blow left a pink mark. It disappeared as Reggie's face turned red. With a bellow, he charged in, throwing blow after blow. Indy blocked or dodged most of them, but a punch to his shoulder rocked him back. Reggie leapt forward, eager to catch Indy while he was open, but Reggie let his guard down. Indy threw a punch straight to Reggie's nose. The British boy staggered and blinked. A trickle of red flowed down his upper lip. Snarling, Reggie stormed forward again. The two boys stood toe-to-toe, slugging it out. They were aware only of each other. They didn't hear one of the boys hiss, "Cheese it! The head!" They didn't even notice the other boys disappearing up the stairs. Their first hint of trouble came when a pair of heavy hands shoved them apart. Indy turned. The black-robed figure of the headmaster was looming over him. "Fighting, eh?" Mr. Chadwick boomed. "You two gentlemen will accompany me to my study." He marched them out of the dorm and into a book-lined office. They stood before his desk as he gave them a stern glare. "Pengrave, I'm surprised at you. There is no excuse for this." Mr. Chadwick stalked over to an umbrella stand. He pulled out a thin, whippy cane. It sliced through the air with a whistle. "And young Jones, perhaps. They fight like savages on every street corner in America. But I won't have it here. Both of you lean over the desk. Prepare for the whipping of your lives. And Merry Christmas to you," Indy thought, as he bent over. He didn't care about the thrashing he was about to get, but he hated having to take it like a slave. The only good thing was that Reggie would get it too. Another fun time at Youch! Charrington Academy, he thought bitterly as the cane whipped down. I can hardly wait to get back after the holidays. And that has been Chapter 1 of Indiana Jones and the Circle of Death. Tune in next time, boys and girls and boys, adventure seekers.